I don't even know where to start. Maybe with the fact that I always thought I knew her, that I knew the woman I married, or at least thought I did. But looking back now, I realize how many little signs I ignored, how many times I brushed off that gnawing feeling in my gut. It was supposed to be our engagement dinner, a celebration, right? Everyone happy, toasting to our future. I remember the clink of glasses, the laughter, the smell of steak and champagne filling the air. I was proud, honestly. Proud to be marrying her, proud to be surrounded by friends who thought we were perfect. We'd been together for 5 years, high school sweethearts, the kind of couple everyone envied. We had plans, a big house, a dog, maybe even kids someday. We laughed, we argued, but we always made up. That night I'd been making a toast, smiling like an idiot, my voice thick with emotion. I looked into her eyes, saw her smile back, soft and warm. It felt right, until I saw him. That moment will stay with me forever. He was standing across the room, laughing at something someone said, but what caught my eye was the way she looked at him. The way her smile lingered, her eyes shining just a little brighter. I remember raising my glass, trying to ignore the sudden tightness in my chest. I was saying something about our future, about how lucky I felt. She was nodding, still smiling. But I saw her glance at him out of the corner of my eye, that quick flick of her head, the way her lips curved. It was a smile I didn't recognize. It wasn't the kind of smile you give your fiancé during a toast. It was different, flirtatious somehow. The kind of smile that makes your stomach turn cold. My heart hammered in my chest. I shifted my gaze, trying to find a reason, a sign I'd missed, but there was nothing. Just her gazing at him like he was the only man in the world. I was so focused on her that I barely noticed the way her hand brushed his sleeve, the little laugh she gave him after a joke no one else heard. I had been so blind, so damn blind. After the toast, I felt my hands trembling as I reached for my glass. My voice sounded rough when I asked her to dance later. She looked at me, a flicker of something unreadable passing through her eyes. She nodded, but I could see her smile was different now, almost smirking. I wondered if I'd seen it then, or if I was just imagining things, but I hadn't. I was just too damn naive to see the truth. Later that night, I found myself staring at my phone, trying to remember if I'd said anything suspicious during the toast. Did I mention how much I loved her? Did I say something that tipped her off? I replayed the night in my mind, each word echoing louder than the last. To our future, I said, but did I really mean it, or was I just fooling myself? The worst part is I kept thinking about her smile, the way her lips parted just slightly before she looked at him, the way her eyes sparkled in a way I'd never seen before. That's when I knew I had to find out the truth. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not anymore. There was a piece of me that already knew, and that piece was screaming. For answers, I didn't sleep much that night. My stomach was a twisted mess, a knot I couldn't loosen. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, that damn smile, and I felt this icy surge of rage. I wanted to punch something, break something, but mostly I just wanted to understand. How could someone I loved so much betray me so openly? How long had she been hiding this? And what did I do to deserve it? In the days that followed, I started digging. Not just in the usual ways, checking her phone, her social media, things I'd never done before. No, I needed more. I needed proof. I remembered the small, almost insignificant detail that later turned out to be my biggest clue, the lipstick stain on his shirt collar. I saw it when she tossed a jacket onto the bed that night. Red, smudged, unmistakable. I hadn't realized at the time how much that stain would symbolize everything that was broken. That stain was the first physical evidence I found, but I knew it wasn't enough. I wanted certainty. I wanted her to slip up, and I was willing to wait, because in the back of my mind I already had my plan forming, dark and clear. I just needed to be sure. I needed to see her with him again, to catch her in the act, or at least to get the proof I needed to make her own betrayal undeniable. Right now, I sit here, staring at that lipstick stain, feeling the cold weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I wonder how many nights she'd spent with him, how long she'd been sneaking around, lying to my face while I'd been planning our future. Fake words I said, the vows I made, they all seem hollow now, because I realize I was just another fool standing here, toast in hand, while she was already with someone else. And I'm left with a burning question. How do I turn this pain into justice? I spent the next few days trying to stay busy, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile. That damn smile. I kept replaying the night over and over, trying to catch what I missed, but the truth was staring right at me from the start. I had ignored the signs, brushed off that little voice in my head, telling me something was wrong. Now I couldn't unsee it. She'd been lying to me the whole time, and I just didn't want to admit it. I decided I needed more evidence, something concrete, undeniable. I started asking questions, but carefully. I didn't want her to catch on. Every conversation was a delicate dance, trying to sound casual while probing for clues. I'd ask her what she thought of college friends in general, trying to slip in some bait. She'd smile that same way, that smirk I'd come to dread. "Oh, you know, friends are just friends," she'd say, brushing her hair behind her ear, but I knew better now. One night I followed her, not in a stalker kind of way, but enough to see where she went when she thought no one was watching. I parked a few blocks away and watched her slip out of the house, adjusting her coat. I caught her getting into his car. My stomach twisted and my palms went slick. They drove off and I kept my distance, just enough to see where they went. It wasn't far, just a quiet apartment complex about 10 minutes away. My mind spun. This was it. Proof enough. I sat in my car watching her walk in with a small bag. I didn't need to see much. Her body language told me everything. The way she leaned into him, touched his arm, the way her face lit up. I could almost hear her laugh from where I sat. I had to get inside, see for myself. I needed to know if she was really cheating or just meeting a friend. I waited till early morning, then slipped out to that apartment. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. The door was unlocked, probably because they weren't expecting anyone, or maybe because they didn't care about consequences. I slipped in quietly, my heart pounding so loud I thought I'd wake her in the next room. I looked around, clothes strewn across the couch, a pair of shoes I didn't recognize. Her perfume still clung to the air, thick and sweet. Then I saw him. He was sitting on the bed, scrolling through his phone, that same smug smile on his face. I saw her things everywhere, her scarf, her lipstick, her phone still open on the nightstand. I could smell her perfume, that same scent I'd always loved. But it was tainted now, coated with betrayal. I didn't need more evidence, I knew. I stared at them, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. A wave of anger surged through me, sharp and relentless. I wanted to grab her, shake her, scream at her for all the lies, but instead I backed out slowly, feeling the heat of her betrayal in every step. I had everything I needed. She'd been with him, right under my nose the entire time, and I was done pretending. Back at home, I poured myself a drink, sitting alone in the dark. My mind raced with what to do next. That's when I realized I couldn't just walk away. Not this time, not without some kind of payback. I wasn't the kind of guy who just let her get away with it. I had to make her see what she'd done to me. I had to make her regret. I started planning. It wasn't going to be loud or messy. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. But I had to make sure she knew I was onto her, that her world was about to turn upside down. The first step, I decided, was to prepare her to face the truth. She'd always been clever, always thought she could hide behind her smile. But I was about to show her I was smarter. I knew her dirty little secret, and I'd use it to my advantage. That night I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the cold weight of betrayal pressing down on me. I thought about all the times I'd trusted her, all the promises she'd broken. How she'd smiled at him like she didn't care that I was out there, waiting, clueless. The anger bubbled up again, but underneath it all there was a strange calm. I'd planned my next move carefully. I knew she'd try to deny it, even when I handed her the evidence. I knew she'd try to play innocent, pretend it was just a mistake, but I was ready. I had her cornered now. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming whatever shred of dignity I had left. I was tired of feeling powerless, tired of being the fool. It was time to take control. Tomorrow I'd confront her. I'd show her. I knew everything, and I'd do it on my terms. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that betrayal isn't just a wound, it's a dark game. And I was done playing nice. The morning hit me like a punch in the gut. I woke up with that familiar knot twisting in my stomach, worse than before. I knew I had to do it, confront her, face her with everything I'd uncovered. No more hiding, no more pretending I didn't see the signs. I felt my palms slick, my throat dry as I prepared for what was coming. I wanted her to see I wasn't the fool she'd thought I was. I wanted her to understand, one way or another, that I knew. I went into the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection was grim, eyes dark and tired. I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to steady the trembling in my hands. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the lies, the betrayal, the way she'd shattered everything we'd built. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. Today I was going to face her, tell her I knew everything, and then I'd figure out what came next. When I walked into the living room, she was there, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. She looked up and gave me that fake, innocent smile. I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, but she masked it quickly like she always did. I didn't give her the satisfaction of hesitation. I didn't waste a second. "You lied to me," I said simply, my voice low but steady. She blinked, caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" asked, acting surprised, but I could see her eyes darting around, searching for an escape route. "Don't play games," I snapped. I pulled out the evidence, photos I'd taken, the lipstick stain on her jacket, the messages on her phone I'd scoured late last night. "I saw you with him. You've been sneaking around for weeks, haven't you?" Her face paled just slightly, but she recovered fast. "It's not what it looks like," she said, voice trembling. "We're just friends, nothing more." I laughed bitterly. "Friends? Really? That's why you're smiling at him like you're in on a secret? I do know. That's why. You're hiding your phone." I slammed the pictures on the table. "You've been lying straight to my face." "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, tears welling up. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." That's when I felt the first flash of real anger. "A mistake? You're telling me all those times you told me you loved me, you were just fooling around?" My voice cracked, my throat tightening. "You think I'm stupid enough to believe that?" She looked away, silent. I knew what I had to do next. I needed to make her understand this wasn't just about a fling or some mistake. It was about her complete betrayal of everything we once stood for. I wasn't going to let her brush this off. Not anymore. "So what now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "Are you going to lie your way out of this, or are you finally going to admit what you've done?" She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. I'm sorry," she managed to say. "I didn't mean for this to ruin everything. I was weak, I guess. I didn't want us to end, but I messed up." I took a slow step forward, feeling the heat rising in my chest. "Sorry doesn't cut it," I said coldly. "You've been cheating on me, lying to my face, and now you want me to just forgive you." Her eyes filled with tears and she looked desperate. "Please," she begged. "Give me a chance to fix it. I'll stop, I swear. Just don't do anything stupid." That's when I felt something inside me snap. I'd been patient, I'd waited, but enough was enough. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You want a chance, fine, but it's not going to be easy because I'm not the kind of guy who just forgets betrayal overnight." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Her eyes widened as I dropped it onto the table. "That's everything," I said quietly. "Your keys, your phone, your passport. You're leaving tonight. You're not staying here." She stared at the envelope, trembling. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Anywhere but here," I said, voice firm. "And don't bother calling me. I've had enough of your lies." As she looked at me, tears streaming down her face, I knew I'd crossed a line. But I also knew I'd finally taken control of my life again. The pain was sharp, but it was a relief too. I'd confronted her, shown her I wasn't blind anymore. After she left that day, I sat alone in the silence that followed. My stomach still churned, but a strange calm had settled over me. I had done what I had to do. No more lies, no more pretending. I had the evidence, the plans, and a decision. I was finally free. Now I just had to figure out what came next. And honestly, I wasn't sure yet. But I knew one thing: this betrayal had opened my eyes, and I wasn't going to let her or anyone else ever do that to me again. The days that followed were a blur. The house, once filled with her laughter and the scent of her perfume, now felt hollow and cold. I stayed mostly in my room, staring at the envelope I'd handed her that day. Her keys, phone, passport, all packed in a small, unassuming bag. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold in front of me. I told her to leave, and she did, crying and begging, but honestly, I didn't feel much relief. It was mostly numbness, a dull ache deep inside that kept telling me I just lost something I thought was forever. I knew I needed to keep my head clear, though. Revenge isn't supposed to be impulsive. It's about making her see what she threw away, what she never appreciated. I started laying the groundwork for what I decided was my plan, something subtle, calculated. I wasn't going to go in guns blazing. No shouting, no public scenes. Instead, I'd remind her she'd lost everything while I kept my dignity intact. The first move was to dismantle her reputation, at least among our mutual friends. I wasn't about to trash her outright, but I wanted them to see her true colors. I started dropping hints, sharing what I'd uncovered, just enough for them to connect the dots. People who knew us both would notice the subtle changes in her stories, her excuses, her attempts to spin the narrative. I didn't need to say much. The truth would do all the talking for me. I also reached out to a few of her close friends I trusted. I wanted them to know what she was capable of, to see if they'd come to their own conclusions. Nothing overt, just vague references, enough to make them question her version of events. It was strange, feeling like I was constructing a puzzle, each piece strategically placed for maximum effect. But I knew a bigger move was coming, something that would leave her no room to deny her actions. That evening, I set up a small chat with someone I knew wouldn't be swayed by her charm or her lies, someone who'd listen without judgment but also without bias. I told him everything, handed him the evidence, and watched as his eyes widened in shock. "You're serious about this?" he asked, voice low. "Dead serious," I replied. "She thinks she can cheat and lie her way out of it. I want her to see what she lost, and I won't stop until she understands the damage she's done." That was the plan. Plant the seed of her downfall, but do it in a way that leaves her no way out. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, crushing her not just in my words but in her reputation, her name. I knew her pride was her weakness, and I aimed to exploit that. The night I executed my plan, I sent her a simple message. No words, just a photo of her lipstick-stained shirt taken when I found her that night. No explanation, no threats, just that image. I watched as her phone buzzed, her eyes darting to the screen. I could almost hear her heart pounding through the silence. The fallout was immediate. I didn't need to say a word. Mutual friends started questioning her stories, their doubts creeping in like weeds choking her own lies. The whispers grew louder each day. I kept my distance, letting her unravel in her own web of guilt and shame. I was careful, though. I didn't want her to think I was gloating. I just let her be uncomfortable, exposed, vulnerable, exactly what she'd done to me. She called a few times, crying, begging, but I ignored her. I didn't want any more lies, any more false hope. I'd already handed her her consequences. The moment I sent that photo, everything else was just noise. I knew she was panicking, scrambling to explain herself, but I didn't care. I'd made my point. She was the one who betrayed us, and now she had to live with it. I spent nights awake watching her fall apart from a distance. I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. Anger because she'd shattered us, and relief because I finally saw her for who she really was. No more pretending, no more lies. I was done waiting for her apology, done hoping she'd somehow change. This was my victory, even if it was a quiet one. That's when I realized I had another card to play, something that would hit her where it hurt most. I had to remind her that her actions weren't just about me. They affected everything she'd ever built. I started gathering her old emails, her social media posts, things she'd written long before we met. I wanted her to see the person she'd been before she betrayed me. I wanted her to remember who she was before she let herself become someone she hated. I also reached out to her family, those who might still believe in her. I told them bits and pieces, enough to make them question her version. I wasn't interested in tearing her down completely, just enough so she'd understand that her lies had consequences that stretched beyond just me. The more she tried to hide, the more exposed she became. Looking back now, I realize how much I'd underestimated the damage she could do. But I also see how much stronger I've become in the process. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my self-respect, about taking control of my life again. In the end, I knew I had to do something to make her see that I wasn't going to be a fool forever. Now I sit here, waiting for her next move, knowing I've set the pieces in motion. The silence is deafening, but I feel lighter than I have in years. I've made her face the truth, and I've shown her I'm not the one who's going to keep pretending everything's okay. Because some betrayals cut so deep, you have no choice but to stand up and fight back. The weeks after I set my plan into motion were eerily quiet, and honestly, that silence only intensified the ache inside me. I kept my phone close, watching every little notification, waiting for her response, or maybe for her to finally crack. I watched her social media, her friends, even her family to see if anyone else caught wind of what I'd done or if she'd try to spin her way out of it. But I stayed disciplined, not giving her any reason to think I was losing control. The truth was, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and dread. Satisfaction because I'd finally made her face her actions, made her vulnerable in a way she never expected. But dread because I knew this was just the beginning of a different kind of pain, one where I wasn't just the betrayed, but the one who did the betraying right back. And honestly, I didn't know where that line was anymore. One afternoon, I got a call from one of her friends, an older woman who'd been close to her for years. The voice on the line was hesitant but firm. "I just want to know the truth," she said. "Because something doesn't sit right. I saw her yesterday. She's been crying a lot and she's acting strange. Did you do something?" I hesitated for a second, then decided to tell her a sliver of what I knew. "I just want her to realize the damage she's done," I said softly. "She's not the person I thought she was. I think she's finally starting to see that." The woman on the other end was quiet for a moment, then sighed heavily. "I've always believed in honesty. If she's hurting, maybe it's because she deserves to. You did what you had to." That small conversation was a turning point. It told me I wasn't just fighting in the dark anymore. People around her saw her for who she was, or at least they were starting to. She was unraveling, and I could see it in her posts, her messages. She was trying to act like everything was fine, but her words betrayed her. The cracks were spreading wider, and I was content to let her fall apart slowly. But I wasn't done yet. No, I had one last move, something that would hit her harder than anything else. I'd been saving it, waiting for her to get desperate enough to take the bait. And I knew exactly when that moment would come. It came when she called me, late one night, voice trembling. "Please," begged, "can we talk just once face to face?" It surprised me. I'd expected silence, maybe even her to block me out completely. But instead she wanted to talk. I decided to meet her at that old cafe we used to go to before everything fell apart. It was quiet then, just the two of us. I sat there watching her walk in, her face pale and shadowed under the dim light. She looked broken, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she started, voice cracking. "I never wanted things to get this bad." I crossed my arms, feeling the cold of that moment settle inside me. "You lied," I said simply. "You cheated. You smiled at him that night like you didn't care about what it would do. So tell me, what now? Do you want to keep pretending it didn't happen?" She looked down, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid of losing everything. But I see now that I lost myself. I don't blame you for being angry." I felt a flicker of something, maybe pity, maybe contempt. "You should have thought about that before you decided to betray me," I said coldly. "Because now I'm done. I want you to understand this isn't just about the cheating. It's about the fact that you thought you could lie to my face and get away with it, but I see everything now and I'll never forget." She looked up, desperation in her eyes. "Please," she begged, "is there any way back from this?" I shook my head slowly. "No, what's done is done. You had your chance. I hope you figure out what's more important, your lies or your conscience, but I won't be part of your mess anymore." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the last piece of my plan. I handed her a small, folded envelope, her keys, her phone, her passport. I watched her eyes widen as she realized what I was doing. "Take your things," I said, voice steady. "You're leaving, and don't come back. You've lost me. You've lost everything." She looked at me, tears spilling over, but she said nothing. Instead, she reached out slowly, took the envelope and got up. I watched her walk out the door, feeling the weight of her betrayal finally lifted from my shoulders. As she disappeared from sight, I knew this was the end, not just of our relationship, but of a chapter I'd been trying so hard to deny. I'd made her face her choices, and I'd taken back my life. Now all I had to do was move forward. The truth, I never thought I'd get here, but I realize now that sometimes betrayal is what it takes to wake you up, and I refuse to be the one left behind. The silence after she left was deafening. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the empty doorway, feeling the last pieces of that betrayal finally fall into place. It was like a heavy weight had been lifted, but underneath it all, I felt hollow, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster I'd been riding. I kept replaying everything in my mind, every sign I'd ignored, every moment I'd convinced myself was innocent until I finally saw her for what she really was. It took a while to feel that sense of closure, but I knew I had done what I needed to do. I'd confronted her, handed her the consequences, and finally taken control of my own life again. The house still felt strange without her, alien in a way I hadn't expected. All her belongings gone, her scent fading from the air, leaving behind a hollow echo of what once was. But I wasn't going to let her betrayal define me. Not anymore. That night I went to bed early, feeling the ache in my chest ease just a little. I knew I'd have to rebuild from this point on, trusting again, healing, finding out who I was outside of her shadow. It was going to be a long road, but I was finally free to walk it. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to breathe without looking over my shoulder. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The anger still simmered beneath the surface, but it was no longer blinding. I knew what I'd done was justice, even if it felt painful. I'd turned her own lies and betrayal against her, and I'd come out with my dignity intact. I'd made her realize that she couldn't get away with hurting someone without consequences. I got up, looked around the empty house, and felt a strange sense of peace. It was a peace born from knowing I'd regained my power, that I hadn't let her walk over me, that I'd finally taken my life back. I grabbed a pen and some paper and I started writing a letter, not to her but to myself, to remind me of how far I'd come, of the lessons learned, that I was strong enough to survive this, stronger than I thought. In the end, I realized that betrayal, no matter how deep, doesn't have to destroy you. It can also be a wake-up call, a catalyst for change. I don't regret what I did because I know I did it to protect myself, to reclaim my dignity, and to stop living in her shadow. I handed over the keys, shut the door behind me, and walked away from that chapter forever. The pain will fade, the wounds will heal, and I'll find happiness again. Because sometimes the only way to move forward is to confront the darkness head-on and walk through it. The biggest lesson I learned: no matter how much someone betrays you, you have the power to choose how you respond. And I chose to take my life back.